Hey everybody, I hope that if you partook, you had a nice Thanksgiving. I'm back with a new episode. I want to talk a little bit about magic, wizards, and witches today, because that is a subject that we probably should discuss a little bit. I went to see Wicked this weekend with the family, and I don't know about you guys, but as a Jehovah's Witness, I definitely watched The Wizard of Oz. Maybe felt a little weird because there was a witch in it, but we watched it, because didn't everybody watch The Wizard of Oz? I guess most people maybe. But that being said, when I was seeing Wicked, there's a part where the witch, it's really not a spoiler, she's a witch, so she casts a spell. And nowadays with Hollywood, it's pretty dramatic and intense. And I it's just sitting there, and your Jehovah's Witness past kind of hits you, and you're like, 1 second you think, oh no. And then the next thing I thought was, man, I can't believe, I thought it was a great movie. And so many J-dubs can't go enjoy this fairy tale of a movie because of there's a witch, it's all about the witch, there's magic, and there's a wizard. So I thought, man, we really need to address this, because in hindsight, when you think of fairy tales, it's all a make-believe fictional story. And where's the line? Where really is the line? If you think of anything Disney, I know there's J-dubs who don't watch anything Disney. I remember we had a couple that were hardcore in my old congregation, and they made a comment how if you're a Jehovah's Witness, you can't go to the magic kingdom because it's magic. And I was just really offended by that comment, because A, I love Disney, always have, but B, and that is your personal opinion. I thought, the Watchtower, our guiding light, not the Bible, but the Watchtower was our guiding light, never said anything about that. So how dare you as a brother just come in here and make that rule for everyone else? Which, side point, I have heard plenty of brothers on stage bring in their personal beliefs and make it kind of like a rule. I remember at one assembly, there was a brother who talked about how witnesses should never watch Star Wars because the Force is magical. And again, I thought, wow, that is such a personal opinion. In the literature, it really says, leave it up to your own conscience. But our conscience is trained so weirdly, because we're very scared as witnesses of a lot of things really quickly. And now that I look back, I think that really was just a made-believe story. Talking about Harry Potter, those are books, in my opinion, that are really exciting for, young, older kids to read, and it gets them to read. It's a make-believe story, and we weren't allowed to read it because of the magic in it and the wizards. But then if you look at certain other things, if we actually take the Bible in itself, so let's say we can't read Harry Potter because there's magic and, wizards and witches. But if we look at Leviticus 18, it talks about, that we shall not go to a soothsayer, which is a witch, and inquire of the dead, and that it is punishable by death. And yet it is described in detail in the Bible when Saul visits the soothsayer. And it is, as J-dubs or anybody reading the Bible views it, very demonic, but yet intricate detail how he visits this soothsayer and what happens. And it makes you think, so I'm not supposed to read Harry Potter, and here I'm reading the Bible, and the Bible is telling me all about this medium, the spirit medium, and that's kind of weird. It is complete witchcraft from Satan, but it's in detail explained, which brings me to another thing. I don't know if you guys felt like this. To
to me, it was always really weird that, do you remember the Live Forever in Paradise, the Red Book? And it talks about how, like, things are demonic and we should not do them. And yet there's paintings in that book of the Ouija board, of tarot cards, of, the crystal ball. And I always, as a kid, thought, if this is so demonic, why is there a picture of this in our, like, holy book, so to speak? And if you think about it even further, somebody painted that. So in order to paint it, they have had to have tarot cards and a Ouija board in front of them, or a picture in front of them, in order to paint it. That's really weird. So it's kind of like a double talk thing where you say it's wrong, then it should always be wrong. But then if it's wrong, why is it mentioned in the Bible and in our literature? That is really, really weird. So that brings us to the next question. Why were in Jesus' time in Israel so many demon-possessed people in the first place? Like, they always talk about that at the time they had the best laws in the world, and yet there were so many demon-possessed people, which we don't see nowadays. If this is like the time of the end, you don't really see demon-possessed people like that, And with the best laws in the world in ancient Israel, why did they have prostitutes and male temple prostitutes? I can't rectify that. I don't understand that. Jesus threw out all the people selling things in the temples, and yet they have a male temple prostitute. It just doesn't even understand. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. And then going back to our whole point, Deuteronomy 18:10-11 says, the Bible warns, there must never be anyone among you who practices divination, who's a soothsayer, arguer, or sorcerer, who uses charms, consults ghosts or spirits, or calls up the dead. But then I have to think, what about the transfiguration? I mean, I guess it was just a vision, but what if when people say they see ghosts, it is just a vision as well? Like, where's the line? And then in a way, didn't Jesus call up the dead when he told the girl, rise up? But I guess it's different when Jesus is doing it. So there's just kind of like should we do it not, or should we not do it at all? And then if you think, there is magic because Jesus is performing miracles and magic, but I guess it's just the source is viewed as God. But it does make you wonder, like, why aren't there any miracles nowadays anymore? Side point, different episode. But now back to, like, other things that you can watch or are, like, not as bad as, per se, a witch or a wizard. So a witch and a wizard isn't okay, but it's okay if Mickey Mouse or the fairy godmother in Cinderella is a good example. She's not a witch, but she does make magic. So our witness is not going to watch Cinderella. And I do know that maybe some extreme witnesses really just listen to Kingdom Melodies and watch J-Dub stuff on TV, but it is a little extreme to do that. And we did have a family in our hall. The two boys were my age. We were older teenagers, and I felt like watching them, they were drowning because the parents were so extremely strict with them. I'm sure the parents just meant to do well and thought, like, we got to do everything to keep our kids in the truth. But those two boys, I think they were like 16 and 17. They weren't even allowed to watch anything PG-13. So us other kids at the time, we would go see stuff. I think we went to see that movie Crazy, You Drive Me Crazy, with Melissa Joan Hart. It's such a teeny bopper movie. I'm sure there's not even really anything bad in it, but they were not allowed to come with us. And I thought, man, I feel so bad for them, because if you can't even watch a movie like that, what do you want them to go see, Lassie? I mean, come on, let them be teenagers. And the rest of us, we're all quote unquote good in the truth kids too. We weren't gonna go see like a horror movie or something, and yet the parents were so extreme. And my mom was watching those two, and she thought those two are gonna leave once they hit 18 because they were so miserable. And at the Kingdom Hall, they would talk about, you don't want to raise your kids like a spring and squeeze it together so tight with so many rules that once they're adults they jump away, like you release and they jump away. And yet in a way Watchtower is doing exactly that to us because it's so oppressive. I mean, you have to feel guilty and you are taught to view things a certain way so quickly. And I do have to address a main difference between Europe and America. The rating system is different in Europe. It's more like a guideline at what age you can understand the movie. And so it's not like PG-13, rated R. It was just different. So we didn't really have a limit on what rating of movies we could watch in Europe. Hence, we really just trained our own conscience. And I remember our hall there, everybody went to see Pretty Woman. And it was not a big deal to us because we didn't see anything wrong with the storyline. It might be a little risque, but it's just basically a rom-com. Europeans are a little bit more open with sex anyways. I mean, nobody thought anything wrong with this. And then when we went to visit that year, we came to visit the States because we had family over here. And we're at the meeting and we're talking about what a great movie Pretty Woman was. And this Pioneer sister was just completely offended because we went to watch a rated R movie, which we didn't even know what rated R meant. And then she invited us to go see Ghost, which was PG-13. So the J-dubs in that congregation basically only went by the rating system and not their conscience. And it was weird to us because we're like, well, Ghost isn't really a movie like a Jehovah's Witness would go watch. And she's like, but it's not rated R. And we're like, well, it's, about spiritism. We took that serious. So it's funny, one continent judging the other. Well, we would never do that. And the other ones are like, and we would never do that. And really, the judgment is kind of taught to us about what people do. And, you can kind of see who's weaker in the truth or who's newer in the truth because they don't know the deep underlying rules. But how goofy all that magic stuff is. And wow, how it was ingrained to us when it's just so horrifically creepy and we should abstain from it. And meanwhile, it's just really a made-up fairy tale. I remember waking up, the first thing I read that I could not wait to read, always have wanted to read it, was the Da Vinci Code. But that's more, I think, bad, not so much because of spiritism, but because of they state the story of Jesus, it's an alternative story, so to speak. But that book was fascinating to me. And I read it, and I actually think that it kind of helped me view things in a better light. If you should read it if you haven't, it's a great book. But it helped me relax a little bit about J-dub rules too, because you see the world in a different perspective. And that's a beautiful thing.
So I would love to hear you guys' story pertaining to magic, wizards, and witches, and your thoughts as well. Leave it in the comments, and if you have any questions, I would love to hear those as well, because this is a healthy debate. I think everybody has a different viewpoint, and I think that's also very good. We were raised a certain way, our upbringing is a certain way, it affects us in life, and so I think it's always really good to talk about things and discuss them in a peaceful manner. These are just my opinions, I'm not right or wrong, but I just feel let's talk about it. So let me hear it in the comments. Bye, guys.